Well, let's continue our discussion on ethical behavior. Chris Dobie from the Ethics Institute of South Africa is our guest. He's in our studios, Kotswane, this morning. Chris, just going back to the discussion that Leanne was having just now, it would seem there is an established practice that gifts are acceptable. The issue is at what level should you be still receiving gifts, and what is the cutoff point? Is that a correct interpretation?
It seems that that's where the discussion is at that level. Whether that is necessarily where we should be having the discussion, I'm not sure. The question of the level of gift or the value of gift, that's once again almost an administrative one. Now, it does help certain people to make their decisions a lot clearer if they know what the exact rule is. So let's say there's a rule of 5,000 Rand and that's the upper limit, and nothing above that. It does make it a lot easier. People can say, look, the rule clearly states that I'm not allowed to accept a gift above that value. So the question then is, what should that value be? Where is it going to be influencing a person? But at the end of the day, the moral responsibility should remain with the person. That's the person, with the minister or whoever is receiving the gift. They should be asking themselves, am I being placed in a conflicted position? Am I being compromised in any way? Or can I be perceived to be compromised by the public? So those are invariably the questions. So we've got almost the administrative, legislative side of things, which give clarity and help people to draw the boundaries and communicate those boundaries. But then we also need to take a step back and say, I need to question myself ethically and to determine whether what I'm doing is in any way infringing on the public trust.
Just turn a little bit and focus on the private sector. What is the standard in the private sector? Because clearly gifts are not only a public sector situation. In the private sector, there must be some kind of gifting as well that is undertaken there.
Absolutely. I think, it's been a part of business culture. But there's definitely a lot more awareness, both in South Africa and internationally, about the sensitive nature of gifts and how it does place people in compromised positions.
How is it dealt with? Do business
How
leaders,
is it dealt with?
Yes, do business leaders have to declare? Is there a limitation on the size of the gift you can get? Is there an issue if the gift comes from a company that you've awarded a large business contract? How does it work in the private sector?
In the private sector, obviously, it's not legislated, so each company can decide for themselves how they're going to deal with it. But you're finding more and more that companies do put policies in place. There are companies that have absolutely zero tolerance, so in other words, absolutely no gifts. And they also send out communications to that effect to their stakeholders saying, we know that you're thankful, but please no gifts to our staff, as it does place us in a difficult position. Then you find people who say, very much similar to the parliamentarians and public servants, that above a certain limit you have to declare the gifts. In some cases, all of those gifts do come to the company. In other cases, you may keep them, unless it places you in a conflicted position. So once again, it's the same principle. Like Ms. Mohammed indicated, that there's transparency and accountability, and then the final issue which we need to look at in more detail is then the conflict of interest. Is there a conflict of interest?
Yeah.
Does it infringe on people's objectivity?
Would that be an acceptable standard for publicly elected representatives?
To deal with this in the same manner?
In the same manner, yes.
I think if people do come forward, and that is what's the practice at the moment, so transparency, accountability, and then finally, is there any perceived conflict of interest that could be there? I think it is definitely the right approach. The thing that we do need to acknowledge is that the public representatives are representatives of the entire country and are held to a higher standard, and there's a lot more scrutiny in terms of the gifts that they accept. So that is very important. What's also, I think, a crucial thing is when we look at the ethics of the country. Is South Africa an ethical country is something that we're often asked. And what happens is people tend to look at the behavior of leaders. So what is leadership doing in this regard, and what is happening? Are they being held accountable? Are they setting an example, etc.? I went onto a website when I was asked to come onto the show today, and there was a comment by a person who works at a public service department saying, if our leaders do accept these gifts, why should we not? So in other words, what is the example set by leadership? And that's a very crucial thing. If we're trying to say corruption is one of the most crucial focal points of government, are we addressing that? Are we setting the example?
Right.
And I think in the case of Minister Ndebele, the outcome was positive. I think it's a great thing. He should be commended for returning the gift. But I think there was a missed opportunity in sending a really strong signal. I mean, at the end of the day, he didn't keep the gift, but the signal wasn't sent that we're really serious about this. We really, to us, public trust is a lot more important than personal enrichment. So that opportunity, I think, was missed, which is unfortunate, but I think still should be commended for returning the gift at the end of the day. It was the right outcome. I think just in terms of communicating with people, it could have been a lot stronger.
All right. Chris, thank you very much. Chris Dobie joining us from our studios, Kotswane, talking about ethics, ethical behavior, receiving gifts for political leaders. What are your thoughts about this issue? Send us an SMS, 33726. And we've seen some SMSs scrolling there. Some people saying yes, other people saying no. Where do we draw the line between doing the right thing, being ethical, or receiving gifts if you are a public official? Thank you very much, Chris Dobie.
I saw an SMS scrolling past by saying that it's rude to give a gift back. If somebody gave you a gift and it was a token of in all innocence, you can't give it back. It's uncultural to give it back. Does this work for this particular gift? I don't know. I doubt it.
In all innocence.
In all innocence.
Okay.
Is business all that innocent these days? Who knows? But you send us reviews. Keep them coming. We're enjoying reading the SMSs. We'll continue in the next hour. But right now, let's give you some weather. Here's Andina.